What is going on, XYZers? We are back in the building. Well, I always feel like I'm like trying to be hip when I
thought
say,
you were
but
gonna
that's
say that
like
his house, and I was gonna laugh at you.
His house.
I was waiting. I was like,
oh in the hizzy
oh my
in the his
God.
house. I'm not
Yes.
Snoop. I'm not Snoop. I don't do that. But yes, we're glad to be back with you all and excited to talk about our topic today. Of course, Chris. Next to me is
Maya.
and next to Moyo is
Jasmine.
Sweet. Our XYZers.
Yeah. I wanted to say the resident millennial, but I was like,
That would have been
no,
good.
that would be awesome.
I thought about it before we came, and I was like, I should start saying I'm the resident.
The
millennial.
resident millennial.
But
Now-
then we would all have to do it.
But no, so that would be cool. But it's like you got to come up with something else for your own, right?
I'm a microwaver. That's what they call us, anyway.
See, there you go. So now I just have to come up with something. I
The
don't.
chosen one. They call your generation
The-
the chosen generation.
No, I am not.
Not on a biblical podcast. I'm like, he thinks he's chosen.
I'm not doing that. That screams all sorts of
Yeah, it does.
ego.
It does.
Yo, what's up? It's Chris, the chosen one. Sounds too
Keep
hip-hop.
all of that in.
Yeah, please.
Keep all that in.
So, oh man, we're getting ready to get back into Joseph. We looked at Judah and Tamar last time. We're getting back into Joseph this week. Work. How do y'all view work?
Work.
Yeah,
Work is
work. Two things: work and fairness. So first, let's talk about work a little bit. Work is work,
Yeah. I mean, you have to do it.
right?
If I had a choice, I wouldn't be working. But,
Hey, okay.
we got to do what we got to do.
We all want to be independently wealthy.
And I think, it's so funny. I was just having this conversation with somebody else about work. And
I thought you was about to say grandma.
No, I
Oh,
should-
shout out to grandma
Yeah,
of the
shout out to you,
podcast.
grandma. My grandma's the grandma of the podcast.
Yes.
But like my generation, I feel like no one wants to work, or everyone says that my generation doesn't want to work because we're gonna be our own bosses. We're not going to work for nobody. Like we don't want to do that. And for a big majority of us, that's true. Personally, I'm cool going to my 9 to 5.
Okay.
Being an entrepreneur is not really my vibe,
Yeah.
Right.
because I don't like doing all that extra stuff.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna make income doing something, being an entrepreneur, it needs to be extremely passive. So, and also with that, I'm fine going to my 9 to 5, but work is not my life.
Yeah.
Like for my grandmother, work was life for her
Mhm.
generation.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
Go in and you go
I
out.
go right.
Yeah.
I go. I make my paycheck and I go home. My life is outside of work.
Yeah, I think millennials are like that too. Like, there's a boundary. We
Yeah.
set those boundaries
Right.
that I'm off. Don't call me.
Right.
Like, I'm not an on-call employee, so
Right.
Yeah.
take my number out your phone.
It took me a minute to get there, but yeah, that work-life balance, which is what it sounds like you're talking about, is something that you have to fight for. I find I have to fight for it. So all right, Noblest is going to get mad at me if they ever see this, but they told me I had to take TikTok off of my phone because of all the government stuff, and I'm a contractor, and they said like government employees and contractors can't have TikTok. So I was like, you know what? I'm getting rid of email. I'm getting rid of all the OneNote stuff and the OneDrive stuff, and now my phone is back to being my phone.
Yeah.
But it took me a minute to get there, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You all are changing the game, as they say.
Yeah.
Definitely. And work-life balance is a hard thing to get to. Like
It is.
I would love to say that I leave work at work, but it stays with you sometimes. No, you don't have that.
Not at all.
trouble.
He's
I'm
like,
like, really? I was leaving work like maybe 10 minutes later than I normally do because I set an alarm for 5 minutes before I'm supposed to get off so that I'll be out the door. So the lady was like, I was worried because you were still sitting there. And I was like, she was like, you always leave on time. And I'm like, yeah, I was in a meeting. Like, I was very upset about it. And she's like, I was just making sure because you usually be out the door. And I'm like, nah, yeah.
See, I need to set boundaries because I'm in the office and like we're talking, I'm like, all right, like I'm 30 minutes, all right. And yeah, I think, what was it, yesterday, I think, or Thursday, one of the girls in my office was like, I looked over and you were gone. I left out like a minute after you and your car was gone. It's like, yeah, girl, I'm not staying anymore. When I hit my time, I'm running out of this building.
Oh, jeez.
No.
5 minutes before, because that's my time to let me pack up my book bag, log off, close this. It take me 5 good minutes, and then I have to walk to the garage. So that's I'm like, I really should leave 15 minutes before because the garage is not close. But I don't do that much.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna try and take a note from you all. I get stuck too. It's like, I just need 5 more minutes to finish this thing.
Yeah.
I guess I'm too. I don't know. Noblest, listen to this part. I'm too dedicated.
Yeah.
Hear that. Don't hear the other stuff. Fairness. So work and fairness. I think those are 2 things that'll come up as we go through today.
Yeah.
Is life fair? I think I know everybody's answer. No. Is there an expectation that it should be fair? And in realizing that life isn't fair, right? How do you approach it?
I don't know. I feel like we all know life is not fair. And that's something even with my kids when they are like, it's not fair. And I'm like, yeah, that's life. Like even at this age, it's life. It's not fair. Some things just happen because it is what it is. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't maneuver any differently. It's just something that you know in the back of your head.
Okay.
I think I do maneuver a little bit differently because life's not fair. I think I try my best to make it fair.
Okay.
When it comes to situations in life, so like I'm really big on integrity and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So if I feel like someone and I think in like the workplace and really in life, like Black people per se, we have to do a little bit more and like, oh, that's just how it is, that's how we have to operate and things like that. Or even in relationships when people wrong someone else just because this is how it has to be. No, it doesn't. Take accountability for your part. Let's change this up because we have certain things within our control. The things outside of our control, okay, life's not fair. That this is the system. This is how the system's going to be unless you get to a certain point where you can make the difference. But in our small little ecosystem, I have some things in my control.
True.
So I'm gonna level this playing field the best way I know how.
You can, in the sphere that you have. Yeah.
Like even with in my family. Like my mom's always been like, I'm fair, and I'm fair across the board. It might not look like it, but I try to make it fair for both siblings, or whatever. And I'm like, is it? Let's back up. Let's look at this from a bigger perspective. Like,
right.
How can we really, truly level the playing field for my sister and I, or
Okay.
So like, I don't know. That's kind of always been my philosophy. Like from even when I was really young, I would always question her, like, no, this isn't fair, but we need to make it fair, and you can. It's within your control.
The microwave-er, is that your name? He's over here getting it in.
Yeah, I'm so quick, but I'm trying to work on that because I know, actually, I don't think I believe that. I don't think that things have to be a way for a reason. I think things can change.
Okay.
I can see that.
I can see that. I can see trying to control your own sphere, but I agree. The recognition of there are just areas that you just have no control over.
Yeah.
And, it can be unfair. Things can happen, and you can be like, but I did all of this stuff, and I was good, and I have integrity, and why?
Yeah.
We were, I think when we closed out last time, I was thinking of the title of this episode being The Thirst Trap. But I started reading again, and I was like, I don't like that. Because it's not, I'm Gen X, so I hear these things and think I know, and then when I think about what a thirst trap actually is, I was like, that does not fit really at all. So I was thinking maybe the title should be Get Down to Get Up, or Go Down to Go Up.
You can workshop that.
Workshop.
I don't know yet. I like the thirst trap a little bit,
really?
Just because when I think of a thirst trap, I wasn't even thinking about Potiphar's wife being the one doing the trapping, because apparently Joseph is
we about to talk about that.
Fine. So he might just be walking around as a walking thirst trap. Like he might not be trying. He just built like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
when I think they're sure, I'm thinking thinking just that.
Yeah.
So maybe
He's just built like that. He
Yeah.
don't have to do extra. He's just built like
He just
that.
okay,
is.
maybe.
And his mama was built like that. So
Right.
Right.
at this point, it's genetics.
Right. Yep.
Nice.
So it might fit.
Yay, it might fit. Okay, so we'll have to workshop it.
Yeah.
Y'all see the title when it comes out.
Yeah.
We working through some stuff. So let's get started. Genesis chapter 39, verses 1 through 6.
Now Joseph had brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in the house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and the field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. And that's like half of 6.
Yep, that's half of 6. Sweet. So we get back to Joseph, and one of the first things we see about Joseph is that he had been brought down. And remember when we talked about being brought down, because Judah went down, Joseph went down into the pit and was eventually sold. So I think this is really getting to his separation, right? And getting back and saying, all right, we're picking up where we left off, and Joseph is truly separated from his family.
Mm-hmm.
But what else do we pick up about Joseph in those first 6 verses?
He has the favor of the Lord.
Mm.
And I was this morning, I did talk to grandma. This morning I was like, I don't understand. Why is he in the favor? Why is he the one? Why does God keep looking out for him? He was in a terrible situation. He was sold. Potiphar, he got to Potiphar, but then he was left in charge of all Potiphar's things.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why him?
I think it goes back to the work. Like Joseph, I think in every scenario we've seen him in, he's always kind of been doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Okay, so hold up right there. Because remember when we first talked about Joseph, does this change your view of Joseph
Oh,
when
no.
you first met him?
No.
You still
'Cause he
think
was
he's
still
bratty?
Yes, but bratty kids are doing what they feel like is right,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
I'm going to
Okay.
tell on
I'll
you
give you that.
because you're doing the wrong thing.
Okay.
And Joseph is like this. He's a hard worker, obviously, because how did he get to that position?
Right.
So I don't know. Even as you read throughout, he has to be doing something in order for people to see that, oh, God is actually blessing him more than normal. So he might be a hard worker, but on top of that, everything he touches is like made better.
Right. And I was looking at it too. I looked it up. I had to do some digging because I needed to go back as far as I could to figure out what is he doing? What's the underlying here? And we'll see it some more, but one commentary I saw said that Joseph is always doing the right thing, but for the right reasons. So I'm telling because you're doing something that's going to go against what God's will is, or something you're going to hurt yourself or something like that. And I think I relate so heavily to that because I feel like I'm always like the snitch, or Jasmine's like, she's no fun and all that. And I'm like, listen, this is wrong.
Uh-huh.
It's wrong. I'm sorry. You can be mad at me, but I'm gonna go and do what the right thing is, even if it means you're gonna, this might be a little bit of tension here.
Right.
I have to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So I think that's why he's being put in these kinds of advantageous positions. Even though initially, I thought about that too. Like, he's a brat, and I didn't see him doing anything good per se. Initially, in the beginning, what is he doing so significant? But here, and we'll see later, like he always is doing what God is telling him he is supposed to do.
The right thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think you're right. That can come off as bratty.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Especially if it's against you, like,
Yeah.
bro.
why
you're
you gotta
Like,
call
chill
me
out.
Like, I'm not bothering you.
um, and yeah, it is. There's one of the themes that we'll see throughout this chapter is that the Lord is with Joseph,
Yeah.
right? But that is because I think that is because the same way the Lord is with Joseph is the same way that the Lord is with Jacob.
Mhm.
It's the same way that the Lord was with Isaac.
Mhm.
The same way that the Lord was with Abraham. So if we go back and you go back to Genesis and you go so let's walk through Genesis a little bit. You've got Adam and Eve, right? Then you have the fall in chapter 3. And then you talk about the wickedness of man when you get to 4 and 5. You get the flood. God chose Noah. He was righteous, the most righteous in the land. So from Noah's line, then we get another line that comes out of, I believe it's Shem, right? And that's the chosen line that we ultimately get to Abraham within in Genesis 12:3 is where God gives the covenant, right, with Abraham, right? I will bless you, right? You will have children as numerous as the stars and things of that. He tells them from Genesis 12 on through 17. So there's just this theme, this overall theme of the Lord being with the people that He chose in this manner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely stuck out to me.
Yeah. One other thing is that it says that his master saw that the Lord was with him, which the master is not a somebody who believes in the same God, right?
Right.
So how is he seeing that?
Right.
Like we're talking about, what is Joseph doing? Joseph is doing something in order for people to know that he's serving somebody that's greater than himself. I think. I feel like, why would they put his master saw that the Lord was with him
Right.
if it wasn't something that Joseph is obviously making known?
Yeah. That's a good question because we can. So just food for thought. We can lean this one way or the other. We can lean it such that Joseph is doing such good work that it just shows that way. Or we can lean into the Lord is being the Lord, and somehow Potiphar understands this apart from Joseph's work. I'm not trying to demean what Joseph did, but
Or I'm not even talking about his work. I'm talking about, maybe he's talking about God. Because
oh, okay,
even
yeah, maybe.
later on, we hear him talking to the prisoners, and he's telling them, the Lord is giving me the answer to your dreams.
To your dreams.
So he's always bringing up God. So
True.
people might know that Joseph, that guy who always is talking about God and the Lord, and I think that he might have that personality, because how else is Potiphar figuring that Joseph is serving someone, or that he's being blessed by someone?
See, I don't know. I get that, but it doesn't say that Potiphar heard or Potiphar reckoned it. When you read through, and we haven't touched on it a lot, but when we read through these chapters, a lot of things have to do with seeing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even when you go back to Judah and Tamar, it's like Judah saw her, right? Even here, they saw, the master saw that the Lord was with Joseph. When we get to Potiphar's wife, which we'll get to in the next section, she raised her eyes toward Joseph and finally saw him,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, yeah, I get it. Joseph is probably is talking to folks about the Lord, and I just have to wrestle with how does that play into the seeing
I
in
think
my mind.
when I thought about that, this is so interesting because I was thinking the same things. I related this to when people say like they're not looking at you, they're looking at the God in you. Or like like in FCA, the teacher was telling me about, we were talking about relationships and how like you love this person, but you don't want them to just, you don't love them per se just for them. You love the God that's in them because that's what they're exuding, like what God is playing out in their life. So when I thought like he sees him, I thought two different things. For one, it's like Potiphar just wants the God that's in Joseph. He wants, and it's like my pastor said, someone can't go on behalf of you to God. Like, not that you can't pray for somebody, but like you can't have a tangential relationship with
Right.
God through me.
Okay, right.
That's what I thought of. Like, Potiphar wants a relationship with God and all the good that God can do, but through Joseph. He's the waypoint. That's kind of how I thought of it. But I don't know. Like, now that we're differentiating his acts from just God working, I don't know how you would see it physically if we're just talking about I'm watching you, unless like how people say you live like a Christ-like life, or like you walk in a way that's that shows that God is working through you. Unless it's that kind of way that he's seeing it,
Yeah.
I don't know any other way.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I think there is something. One of my pet peeves is being hypocritical. So there is something about saying I'm trying to be about that life.
Mm-hmm.
So when people see me, I want them to see that I'm about that life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, given the opportunity, I'm going to speak on Jesus and those types of things. But in my everyday walk, even when I don't get that opportunity, I'm going to be about that life, right? So I think there is some speaking to about the Lord. There's some living and conducting yourself a certain way, and I think maybe all of that ties into what he saw, what Potiphar saw.
There's one other, and I kind of want to. I'm not going to expand on it too much until we get farther. But something that I read too said that turning things into good is a Christ-like characteristic, and everything in Joseph's story has worked out in a positive way, even though it seemed like it was going to be a very terrible situation. Even when he, with his brothers and all the things like that, all these things were in a negative light. And like I said in every episode, all things work together for good for those who love God. So everything has turned in a positive light for Joseph, and again, that is Potiphar seeing God work in the life of Joseph. I feel.
Yeah, and I think it's fine to have some tension there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you all think,
No,
but
yeah.
I think it's fine to have some tension there, because what I don't want to do is take away from God actually working.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
God moving, God doing something on behalf of Joseph, because he's with Joseph to take this situation, because, and it makes a point of saying, right, he was in the house of his Egyptian master. So don't get it twisted. He's still a slave,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Regardless of how good or how bad anything goes, Joseph is a slave. He is in a house of his master. So the Lord is working some things out, but I also think that there's some things that Joseph is doing, as we can see, right? That Joseph is being faithful in some things. So the fact that the Lord was with Joseph, what did that do?
The whole house was blessed.
The whole,
like everything was blessed.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, because like, and you touched on it earlier, it's not that Potiphar was like, oh, I'm going to follow the Lord now.
Yeah.
Potiphar was like, man, everything around here is like turning up roses.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, my household's running well. I just got to figure out what I want to eat for the day. Yeah. So it's like that blessing, and when you think of it, and you think of blessing and the Lord, the fact that He can bless whatever He wants. Right? He blessed the Sabbath and made it holy. He blesses Adam and Eve. He tells them to be fruitful and multiply. He's blessing. Do we see that anywhere else in Scripture, that blessing? Can you think of it? I think of one place where I've seen it, and that's like Genesis 12:3, where when God, the Lord, is talking to Abraham, He says, I will bless those who bless you.
Yeah, I would say the blessings of Abraham from
this
song.
Yeah. So it's like, is this playing out where, even though it's like weird to me, because are you really being blessed by Potiphar if you're a slave in his house?
Right.
But still, Joseph is making everything turn up roses and is working out for him to give him the best possible condition, I think, in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thirst trap. Y'all ready?
Yeah, starts off.
Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. 6b, verse 7. And after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And she spoke to Joseph day after day.
Thirsty.
Man, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her, or to be with her. Let's stop right there real quick. So, man,
Yeah.
what about your boy?
Oh my gosh. First of all, he's fine, apparently. Oh my gosh.
And I was talking to Jess about this, and I was like, do you know how good somebody got to look for her to be harassing him like this?
Like, the finest man alive. It's like the best man she's ever seen.
Mm,
She's persistent. She's trying to get him to fall for the temptation.
yep.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it earlier, but we see this description about other folks.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And I mean, like I said, his mom was obviously built like that too.
Yeah.
Because 14 years for a girl is
Uh-huh.
crazy. But if she's making kids that look like her, everybody wants him.
Yeah.
So
And then David is very similarly described as well.
Mhm.
Right?
yeah.
I
And
think they
it's
may
similar
have called
thing.
him ruddy, though. I think a handsome, rugged, ruddy, like
Man,
cowboy
man.
type dude, I guess. I don't know. Am I allowed to say that? But anyway. But yeah, so I mean, David is out there, which causes Potiphar's wife to.
She's drooling.
She's drooling.
And it's crazy because in today's day and age,
Uh-huh.
if a woman is fawning over a man, he well, not all, okay, but a lot, they're gonna go for it. She wants me, and I don't have to. I'm the prize. Oh, as Simone,
Not on the prize.
Simone the prize. Simone Biles' husband, he went on and said, "I'm the catch."
Yeah.
That's how a lot of guys
Really?
feel. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
But that's how a lot of men feel. So with her chasing for all this time, and you think that they're gonna fall for the temptation. A lot of times, more times than not. But he refused. I put it in my notes. He refuses to go against God.
Yeah.
I would say I read a few times that, and also I was talking about earlier that on the show The Great, like it was normal
Uh-huh.
for people in her type of class to sleep with their servants. Like
Mhm.
it's normal. It's not something like you don't reject me. I just say you come lie with me
Yeah,
and
you do
make
it.
it happen. Like you are my servant in any way I want you to be my servant.
Right.
But also leave this boy alone.
Right. I done told you now, girl.
Leave him alone.
Oh man. Yeah. That's wild. Because there's a persistence, and for him to be called out like that is crazy. And I like. I don't know. I guess again back to the seeing in the eyes, and they were like, and after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes. It's like, I don't know. Maybe he was there long enough, and she was just like, okay.
Yeah.
But that whole thing just shows her desire and want, and again goes back to all of the idea of seeing things and what the eyes and seeing things do. What was so? We know Joseph was the man.
He was a dime.
He was a time. I see. What is it called? Like a man crush?
Mm-hmm.
He's probably somebody I may have had a man crush
Man
on.
crush Monday.
Is that safe for me to say?
Do people
If
still
it's
do
not-
that? Man crush Monday
Yes.
hashtag?
Yes. Yes.
But he was being pursued, and he said no. And a lot of people, to your point, use this as a way to address when you're dealing with temptation to like
Yeah.
flee to
Yeah.
pride, right?
Mhm.
But we haven't even gotten to that part. I'm jumping ahead. But what is he? He gives a reason for why he can't do it. What do we think about the reason that he can't do it?
I don't don't think he wants to fall out of God's favor, honestly, because he know like I've done, and it's probably subconscious for him at this point because he's done what God has instructed him to do. He's lived in a way that is Christ-like for this all of this time. What do you think? Me at this point, I've been in God's favor. I'm, as people say now, like I'm God's favorite, and then here I am. I'm gonna. Of all the things, I have everything in my control in this house. You were the only thing I couldn't touch. You think I'm gonna let you mess this up for me? Yeah, no.
Yeah. I don't know if him giving a reason made it worse. Like she's like, sin against God. That's your God. That got nothing
Right.
That ain't got nothing to do
Don't
with
wrap
me.
me in
nothing to do with me. Like, okay, that's a good enough. Like maybe if he would have said, "Girl, you are not built like that," that would have been different. Like, oh shoot, wait a minute. No, that might have got him killed.
Might have got him killed.
But,
Might have been even worse.
But I don't know if the reason. I don't know if the reason. Like she didn't care about that reason. That reason meant nothing to her.
Oh yeah, because she didn't stop.
Yeah.
But I do like how Joseph put it. Because, yeah, you're right. Joseph ends in his reason with saying, and why would I do such wickedness and sin against God?
Yeah.
Right? Which is ultimately what he's getting at. Where his head is, I think. Right? Because, and we've talked about that already. He wants to be in right standing with God as best he can. But it's not the only reason he gives. Right? He says things like, because of me, this household is running smoothly, and my master has nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
There's no one that has a higher voice in this house than me.
Yeah, he said no one is greater in this house than I am. Like, not even the master. We're equal at this point.
You're telling me to mess all of that up by doing this thing with you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not worth it.
Right? And again, I think that gets back to what we said, that, when something is wrong or something can mess something up, Joseph is going to want to point it out and be like, no, I can't do it for these reasons. And I love how his ultimate reason is it's a great wickedness and a sin against God.
Yeah.
So, which brings up a good question, because it's ultimately a sin against God, but it's a sin against Potiphar too in this instance, right?
Yeah.
So, the Torah tells us that even when we sin against people, it's ultimately a sin against God.
Right.
And Psalm 51:4, it's a penitential psalm, and that's a psalm that David wrote after Nathan confronted him about his dealings with Uriah and Bathsheba.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, in 51:4, he said, I have sinned against you, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Not just that I sinned against Bathsheba and Uriah by sending them to the front lines to get killed, but ultimately my sin is against you.
Yeah.
So maybe when we sin, maybe when we think of sin, not when we sin. Scratch that. Not when we sin. When we think of sin, we should think of it as the ultimate impact against God, not just about what it does horizontally.
Yeah.
Right? So
that will really turn some things around.
so I like
that's the goal, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. And so I like what he did. I like what he said, and I like his response. I say, so the description of Joseph, though, these are my notes. Potiphar's wife makes me think of Marvin Gaye's song. I want you, and I want you to want me. And then the Joseph's response, and the wicked and the adultery. So she's just, and she doesn't let it go.
Yeah.
Day after day. Can you imagine? I mean, all right, so everybody does goals or resolutions. And one of my goals is always to eat better, and I always fail. But it's like, we got Doritos upstairs, and I'm like, don't touch them. And they're just there, day after day. Like, don't touch them. Don't touch them. And then one day, it's just like, so it's just like, she's just not letting up and putting them in this weird space.
Yeah.
This weird
in
space.
The kitchen.
Put them in the kitchen him with his snacks while he on his
Right,
diet.
right. So, hey, anything else to touch on with those verses? 6b through, I think we went 10.
No, it's
No?
about to get good.
Right.
Uh-oh. Hey, do you mind reading? I think we need to do 11 through 19. Yeah, let's do 11 through 19.
But one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called the men of her house and said to them, "See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came in to lie He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And as soon as he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house." Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home, and she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to laugh at me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled out of the house." As soon as his master heard the words of his wife, that his wife spoke to him, "This is the way your servant treated me," his anger was kindled.
Man, this gets back to the fairness thing. Joseph is doing everything right. Everybody's like downtrodden. Like, man, how could this happen to Joseph, yo? Not Joseph, not my
Right.
boy. How you go out like that?
And I think it brings it to like telling you, I'm really me and Joseph, we here because you could do like you said, you could do everything right, and somebody is gonna. He did the right thing.
Yeah.
He did the right thing, but someone else was able to twist that, pull it, take it to somebody else, and now everything good that he's done has turned into something bad. And even in life, when you do the right thing to somebody, it's gonna be the wrong thing, or they're gonna present it as if it's the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I've had that happen a lot of times. And I'm like, I don't understand. I did what I'm supposed to do. How does this come back to bite me? I don't understand how this works. But and at the end of the day, I can rest easy knowing that I did the right thing. And Joseph also knowing that he, we'll see later the consequences, but knowing that he did not do what he wasn't supposed to do by the standards of his master and by God, I guess he kind of sits easy, like, it sucks, but I did what I was supposed to do. I snitched, like when he's younger, I snitched, but hey, it was the right thing to do.
Right.
You could be upset with me, but...
Right. It's interesting to me that this happened while the Lord was with him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't that crazy? Like, the Lord can be with you. The Lord is with you so much that he blesses what you do so that it has increase to someone else.
Yeah.
The Lord has blessed you so much that you have pretty much free reign and control over the entirety of his household. The Lord has blessed you such that you have found favor in Potiphar's sight. The Lord is with you, but yet this thing can still happen.
Mm-hmm. I think what also can settle you in these kinds of situations is that Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. Something good is coming out of this.
Right.
Being able to see the good, not only see it, you've seen it in experience, but you know that it's coming.
Right. And that brings up a good point because, and we talked about this when we opened up in fairness, that, yeah, life isn't fair, but what do you do when you get in those unfair times? Right? What do you lean on or lean into, or who do you lean into?
Right.
Because there's one or two ways that Joseph could have went with this, right? He could have been like, tried to run away or caused havoc or, done something or been like, I'm caught, so I might as well just go through with it or just be completely downtrodden and shut down. You don't know exactly what he did afterwards. Or you can continue to trust that as the Lord has shown himself to be with you up to this point, that he's still going to be with you going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that stood out to me. Like, man, the Lord is with you, and you get hemmed up by some conniving, cheating person. And I mean, it happens today too. Right? And you just alluded to that. Right? Especially for me, when I think about it today, when you think about culture and me, and the my, and I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to get ahead. Which, whether it means stealing your work or whether it means I'm going to get to wherever I'm going first, so I'm gonna cut everybody off in traffic, or So yeah, it's the Lord is with you, but you're still going through this. What does the wife do though? She I mean, we could have put some crudiness in this one too, right?
She strips him again of his robe, and Joseph in these robes.
Right.
Like, I need you to just stop wearing robes at this point. But the significance again, it's his brothers did it. Yeah. Now it's happening to him again. It's that same parallel. Yep. I'm going to strip you of your robe and throw you in a pit.
Yep.
You're back in this cycle. And I wonder how Joseph is like, bro, again? How likely is this for this to keep happening to me?
Right. Same circumstance.
What's the dude who always walks around? I'm probably aging myself. And he's just got the cloud and the rain over just him wherever he goes. I mean, at some point, you can probably feel something. They're looking at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I feel like they've made parallels to it. With like cartoons.
Yeah.
Cartoons, but I don't know where it came from.
So, but that's what I'm sort of imagining Joseph feeling like. Man, it's just raining on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't lose his drive still to serve God, which shoot. After the rain comes and it's coming and coming and coming, you kick me while I'm down. Look.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Did anybody catch some racial tension in what she said?
Oh yeah.
No.
She's emphasizing the fact that he's a Hebrew. They're Egyptians. So yeah. She's like, that Hebrew boy you brought in this house.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right. And remember when we are introduced to Potiphar, and we didn't bring this up in the first chapter, in the first couple of verses. But we actually get introduced to Potiphar at the end of chapter 37. We get the same info in the second verse of chapter 39, but with the addition of the fact that Potiphar is an Egyptian.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, she's like, the Hebrew dude, this little, let me say that was the, this little Hebrew boy,
you got.
right? And then, I mean, so she throws out a little racism, I'll call it that. She talks about the ridicule again. And that's the theme that we've seen in chapter 38, right? Yeah, remember when we talked about Tamar and Judah and the ridicule that would be there? Yeah. And what else does she say in that?
She said he came to laugh at me, and I forgot to write it down because there was a parallel to this phrase somewhere else in scripture where they're saying the same phrase, and I didn't write it down. I'm a little bit mad at myself, but they're basically saying that phrase is the same as like sleep with me. It's just the way that they're just using. I don't know why they use that, but it's the same word.
Yeah, and
it's used somewhere else as they're using laugh at me because he's a foreigner coming here to then disgrace us, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and NIV it says to make sport of me. So I kind of was thinking like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like you're trying to make a fool out of me, make a fool out of our family, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, and she says, but they're all just straight up lies.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, she set it up where nobody was there.
We didn't touch on that, but that's a very good point.
What are the odds? Nobody's here except the two of us. She know that man's schedule. Obviously, she's stalking him.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, on this day, he will come in here to do his, I don't know, cleaning or whatever. and I'm gonna just make sure nobody's here because as soon as you scream and they here now, where they come from?
Right.
Where did you send them that they were that close to hear you scream?
Right. And did she scream really?
No.
She
yelled out to the guards.
Right, and she said that when I screamed, then he ran.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I don't think she really did. She really?
She ain't one. She ain't. That's the thing. And I looked at her, I was like, lie,
Right.
lie,
Whole birds
lie.
Well, I think she screamed for the guards after he had already ran. But
Right.
she told the story as, when I screamed for y'all, he ran.
He ran.
Right.
Right. And he
Makes
left
no
his
sense.
robe.
Yeah.
No, homie, you
You
grabbed it off of him.
Right.
And these guards are probably like, girl, we ain't in this.
But I mean, they probably know what the deal is.
Yeah.
Really, because
Nothing is done at that point. Until Potiphar shows up and she tells him the story, the guards are just like, okay.
Right. What you want us to do?
do? Yeah, I mean, and who knows? They could have been harassed the same way that she was
Yeah.
dealing with Joseph. Oh man, it's just bad all the way around.
Yeah.
That's where I wrote, this woman is tripping.
This woman is tripping. I like that. Oh man. So
Potiphar's response, right?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
No, I wanted to when she told the story to Potiphar. So basically, she repeated the story. I don't think that she did anything too crazy when she said it to him.
Except she was lying there with his
Yeah,
like.
isn't that weird?
It is weird. To me, I
weird.
found that was strange. Like, she was lying. I don't know. It just doesn't make it. Why are you laying here
It's
next
like
to her?
she's got it.
Probably
Like,
was sniffing it for a little bit.
it could have been so different.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like, girl, you are crazy.
Yeah, that's very weird. It's very stalker-like.
Yeah, very stalker. And then she talks to Potiphar, tells him basically the same story. The other thing that's emphasized is almost like, I mean, I think she's tripping, but she's also cunning because she also makes it seem like, let me know what you all think, like, this is your fault,
Yeah,
Potiphar.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The one, this, let me get it right, this little Hebrew boy that you brought,
Yeah.
Potiphar,
Yeah.
husband of mine.
Yeah.
And then she repeats that when she tells him,
It's giving Adam.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking when I read it. Like,
Yeah.
this ain't my fault, it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It also distracts from the blame because, you know, like, again, in today's world where they're like, this person is cheating, but they say that the other person is cheating to kind of distract from what they're doing kind of thing.
Yep.
That's what I got from that too.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So, yep, the theme, lie. She was pretty cruddy.
What about his anger being kindled? Like, some commentaries were saying that, like, trying to figure out why was he angry? Was
Right.
he angry at Joseph? Was he angry at the situation? Was he angry that he was going to lose everything because now he got to punish Joseph? Was he angry at his wife for this just how she is? Like, but now I got to punish Joseph because I can't just let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's her word against a servant.
Against a servant.
Even whether I believe her or not.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it could be all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't tell me that Potiphar doesn't, if we go back, I mean, this is a good thing to think through, right? If we go back, Potiphar saw that the Lord was with Joseph. He saw the results of how he was blessed, and it's an inside and outside, basically,
Yeah.
he was blessed.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can imagine him being like, if I send Joseph away,
That's
what's
it for
going to
me.
happen?
Right. I feel like there's some implied reluctance there. That's immediately I was like, he doesn't. You can't tell me he wants to send Joseph away. Like because then you not only you're sending Joseph away. That what happens to your house? What happens to your things? What happens to your blessings? Like what happens to all the things that you were getting as a result?
Right.
In my mind, I was like, he's reluctant because I feel like he would want to punish his wife.
But I also think he doesn't really have a choice because
Right.
of what Moya was saying, this whole the whole paradigm of servant, master,
Right.
Egyptian, Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
hey, he's got to do what he's got to do.
Yeah.
Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in prison. I mean, like, just a foot stomping. He took him to prison where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was in prison. There's no doubt as to where Joseph is.
So he's in jail, right?
Yeah, right. So he's locked up. Locked up, they won't let me out. All right. It says, but the Lord was with Joseph
Again.
and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
I mean, it gave me chills.
cool.
That's because that, it's just so crazy. That is so true. God does that. Like, even, like, you, in the sight of your enemies, like, God will still lift you up in the most precarious situations, as we see.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I wrote was that God can bless you in whatever situation you're in, right?
Yeah.
Joseph has been in a lot of situations, and no matter what, it's repeated over and over. The Lord is with him. The Lord is with him. The Lord is with him. Like,
Right.
how else can we say the Lord is with him?
Yeah.
Right. Right. That I think is the theme of really these first chapters 37 and 39.
Yeah.
Right. The Lord is with them. Because we get introduced to Joseph, we see him go into the pit, and we see him go off and get sold, and then once we pick up in 39, it's like the Lord is still with him, even through all of that.
And it sucks because some people, like, in life, go through very tough situations, deaths, and other really crazy circumstances. And they're like, why? Like, God, you were supposed to be with me.
Right.
Not knowing God is with you. God is pulling you through the situation. There's something coming. Good is coming. You have to see the good in this situation. But it's hard.
Yeah.
And Joseph, I applaud him. Because I was like, all right, Lord, you done...
It's too much.
It's too much. I know I'm your
Yeah.
strongest soldier, but come on. Like, come on.
There's one thing that I want to put out there. A lot of times what we'll do, particularly as Christians nowadays, is try and pull some of these Old Testament scriptures to now. I don't know if we say that the Lord is with us in the same way that Joseph does.
Yeah.
So if you're a believer, the Holy Spirit resides in you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a believer, then you're with Christ, because just as Christ said, and lo, I am with you even to the end of the age. So you know that he's with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a believer, we in Christ, remember Christ also said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, that if the world hated him, how much will the world hate you?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helps lead to some unfairness. But what I also don't want to do is think that because now I'm a Christian, everything's going to be roses and I'm going to be tiptoeing through the tulips and running under rainbows. No, our ultimate hope is in Christ and what he's done and what he is setting up and has set up that's waiting for us.
That's a good perspective.
Right?
Yeah.
So even if in this world, and when you look at how John uses world, this world is something that's an antagonist to the Lord, to God.
Mm-hmm.
Even if in this world I experience nothing but downs and I am a believer, I still have Christ. He is that ultimate blessing that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So while this is a great story and it shows who God is, sometimes I think that now and with these modern times, we can just be like, and I think that's part of like the prosperity thing. Like, I should be wealthy. I should never be sick. I should.
Yeah.
And in reality, it's, we've got Jesus. We're blessed.
Right.
We're whole. Regardless of what happens to me here, I know I've got an eternity waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read through Peter, he talks about I have an inheritance, an eternal inheritance, a hope. and it doesn't decay. It doesn't uh, um, tarnish any. It's going to be just as pristine. It's going to be just right when I get there.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, this is a good story, and Joseph, I think, gives us some insight into who God is and what it means for God to be with people.
Yeah.
I think we have to be careful that we don't try and say that, because God was with Joseph this way, and He blessed him, and some good's going to come out of it that is necessarily going to happen to every believer now.
Yeah. But I think even in Joseph's story, he's never taken out of those situations. Because if we're thinking like the way that people think, I'm blessed and I should be, you don't expect yourself to be in jail. You don't expect yourself to become a slave.
Yeah.
Like, God is with him, but he doesn't pull him out of those
No.
situations. He's not going to make it fair, what we are considering the fair result. And Joseph is in prison, probably thinking of my punishment is going to be what? Because is it just me in jail for the rest of my life, or is it death? Because later on you find two people in jail and they get a sentence.
Yeah.
And so at some point either you're being sentenced or or I don't know how their jail system worked, but you're either here forever or
Right.
you're being sentenced
Right.
to most likely death in his scenario, right?
Right.
So I think God can be with you, but also you can still go through whatever the
You
situation
still go
is.
through situations.
And
Yeah.
where's the delineation between I'm gonna let you go through this, you're just gonna have to go through this, and the people who are their favor falls on the positive side of the coin, like, oh yeah, I'm out of this, versus the people who stay in it.
I don't think there is any, and that's why people say life is not fair. Like God is just, but you don't get to figure out. Like we aren't the judge of that, right? So there are people who are like missionaries who some of them go over there and they die, but some people go over there and they're like, I was taking out right before these people came in and shot up the place. Like, well, what about the ones who didn't make it out, who were
Right.
also missionaries,
Right.
who were also doing the same things? Like at the end of the day, God's like whatever God was trying to get out of that situation was what happened basically, because those people's kids might be like, yeah, my dad died, but this happened. And they'll like there's always, I feel like there's always a bigger picture that we aren't seeing, because of course we have a limited view of
Right.
what God is doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I do think like that in terms of life is not fair, but God is going to do what he wants to do like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Right. I mean, and God doesn't choose favorites. He's no
Yeah.
respecter of persons.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So He's going to do what is needed to get His will done.
Mm.
Right. That's why if we try to take solace in everything here, and the fact that I can make money, or that I'm completely healthy, or that everything is hunky dory, I think you can have a wrong view, because that may not be part of what God intends and needs to get His will done.
This is
And-
gonna have to be a deeper conversation.
Yeah, and usually, yeah, this is going to have to be a deeper
Yeah.
conversation. Because I'm about to go somewhere, and I don't know if we want to go there, but you can start to think of, those big questions as to
Yeah.
purpose,
Yeah.
for whys.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Why am I here? Why does this happen? Right? Yeah, I'm gonna say it. So when my mom got sick, right? Those were the questions. Why? And I'm praying like crazy. Like, Mom, Father, I know you can heal. I know you can touch. I know you can touch. Da, 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 da. And I'm praying fervently, like healing. Like, I know that you can. I pray that you will, and just touch her, and she'll be better. And she ultimately passes, and that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened during that is my relationship with the Lord grew immensely, because I saw how she was. And so while, yes, it's horrible, but I like to think, and some of the reason, the why, the purpose behind this thing happening may have been, I needed you to get closer to me, Chris. And she's in a good spot.
Yeah.
She believes in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But now I have you, and you now believe. So because of that,
Okay.
right? And if it hadn't happened, it could have happened a different way. I don't know whether that's me rationalizing or trying to put purpose behind it, but I think it is a case for when something bad happens in life, it's like God is still working somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think when I was in like youth service back in the day, there was a pastor who used to say, if something happens to you in life, you'll turn away from God. Like trying to warn the younger generation that don't turn away from God, but he wasn't saying it in a good way.
Right.
But and so I used to always be like, I would never, like how
Right.
how like is it Peter was like, I would not forsake you, period.
Yeah,
And
right.
so I think during those times, I would be like, ain't no way. So I would make sure that I was reading my Bible, make sure I'm doing these things so that when something happened, I would be like, I'm ready.
Right.
And I'm ready. And so when things would happen to me, I'd be like, nope, I'm ready. Like, I'm on it. And so I get it. Like, things happen and you're like, wow, how are you pushing through? How are you doing X, Y, and Z? It's the Lord is with me. It doesn't matter what I'm going through right now. Like, the Lord is with me. Throughout college, the Lord is with me. Like, my mom passes, the Lord is with me. Like, people were looking at our family. I think we went to church literally the Sunday after my mom died. And people were like, why are y'all here? Like, are y'all okay? And we're like, this is all we have. This is what we have.
Right.
So the Lord is with us and we're going to make it through. Like, we might go home and be crying, but the Lord is with us. So everything in the situation, like, that's just a reminder. The Lord is with you, but it's not that he's taking you out of it or making it fair for you or making it better for you.
Right.
But Joseph is telling us the Lord is with you. As long as you believe that. I don't even know if you have, you have to believe it. But yeah, that is, and I like that theme. And I'm sure, I don't know if it keeps, but I know in this particular chapter, it repeated 3 or 4 times.
Yep.
Where it's just like, y'all remember, don't forget, don't worry about these thirsty women. Like, don't worry about these masters and bosses and people that are above you. Don't worry about your brothers who are kind of trifling.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about all that.
Yep.
Worry about the Lord is with you.
Amen.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, I know, right?
That gave me chills.
Yeah, all right.
All right, shout out. Yay!
Praise break.
Oh, man. So back to Potiphar. One of the descriptions of Potiphar was that he was a captain of the guard for Pharaoh, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. Which, when I read it, meant that he was either in charge of the king's prison, where we think he ultimately sent Joseph, or that he was some sort of cupbearer or something like that for him. So I think that it is crazy that Joseph is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not the only one.
No, I agree.
Okay.
But I did read, and I don't know what's true because I didn't go into ancient Egypt laws, and I did read that they didn't necessarily kill automatically. Like, people got a trial, or like it had to be investigated before a punishment could be had, which is why we have the other people later on. They were thrown in prison and waited until, I guess, maybe not an investigation the way we think about it now, but something has to come out. Maybe they're going to their oracles or going to whatever they go to determine. So if it's a lot of people in this jail, maybe you're down the list a little bit. Or maybe Potiphar was like, boy, I'm not worried about Joseph. Like, leave that man in there. Let him be great. Like, this woman is crazy. But I think that they had a system, like some sort of system where
that's
you
valid.
didn't just get killed, because that should have been, to me, the result. Like,
yeah.
Anywhere else in the Bible, he would have been killed.
Done. You was out of there. But so, and then once we get to the prison, the same thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing happens. There's that word in there, steadfast love. Did anybody take a look at that word? Chesed. Say that 5 times fast. Chesed. But that's the word for steadfast love. It's like a loyal love. It's like a love that doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, regardless of Joseph's situation, which is what you were talking about, the Lord still loved him.
Yeah.
Regardless of what's going on, I think that the Lord has a steadfast love for us as Christians now,
Mhm.
um, in Jesus Christ. So he wasn't going to leave him. He wasn't going to change what he thought about him. That love was steadfast.
Yeah.
It was loyal. It wasn't based on where you are or what you've done. It was just there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just there.
I think it's interesting though because Joseph hasn't done anything. So why do we need to emphasize the Lord's steadfast love here?
I think it's because, and we touched on it, he keeps going down. This is like the third step of his downward trend.
Mhm.
And it'll turn around, we know now because we read ahead. But the first step was him being thrown in the pit and sold into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's sort of like a little glimmer of hope in that because he, gets to be in charge of everything.
Mhm.
The second step is, the false accusations which land him in. But no, the first step is sold into slavery. The second down is being at master's house and serving there, and he is truly a slave. The third thing is when he gets falsely accused, and now he's thrown down another rung into prison,
Right.
which is not the master's house.
Right.
So I think that that's emphasized because regardless of where he is, that the Lord is still showing that love to him. He's still with him.
Yeah.
And in that love, you see the repeat of the prison keeper saw the Lord was with him. Joseph found favor in the prison keeper's eyes. Joseph was in charge of everything that was going on in the prison, so much so that the prison keeper didn't have to worry about anything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's how I read that and look at it.
There's two. I'm going to refer to my book. So this book, I think, is great. The God Shot. It just explains God's character in Scripture, and I really like it because I think I was looking at there's a girl I know who actually I watch her on YouTube and she reads this book and she says it's in all situations we got to look at who God is and what He's trying to show us because it's literally in everything. So this is kind of like a what is it called, a daily bread, but for God's character. So two things that I pulled out about God's character throughout the Scripture is that He's the God of goodness and the God who protects us. So for the God who protects us, that's Ephesians 6:10-20, and it essentially is talking about putting on the armor of God.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy because in a lot of situations, I'm like, I know that God is going to help me, protect me, all these different things. Finding it in Scripture was always, I never really, I was like, that can't be there. This can't be a biblical thing. I mean, my grandmother would tell me. People in the church would tell me, So it was, I think in this, Joseph is out, like we said, he should have been dead. But God's protecting him. I don't know if I would say, and I guess I'll ask, when people say you put the armor of God on, what's an example? Because I don't know if I would say I see that per se in Joseph. I don't know if I would say that he's done anything for God to protect him. I don't know.
This is like the helmet of truth, the
There's helmet of salvation.
Oh, it's like actual traits that go with each piece of armor. So I don't know. They don't specifically say that Joseph is doing that, but
right. So I'm like, is it implied? Is it implied in these kinds of situations?
I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. Is it implied that Joseph somehow has on the armor of God?
When God is protecting him, when God is displaying that characteristic, is it implied that these people are putting on the armor of God? Or is that an isolated, specific example?
The armor of God is like getting ready for battle, right? If the devil is attacking you, you have these traits to fight against it. Isn't that how it's usually described?
Yeah, when I think of the armor of God, I think first off how we battle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're and there's something about heavenly being or heavenly forces around that as
Yeah.
well, right? So when we're doing that type of battle, it's like a spiritual warfare, if you want to call it that. It may not necessarily be the horizontal level or your boss
Okay.
trying to
Okay.
attack you, but there's really forces out there that are going to try and beat you down,
Okay.
potentially take your eyes off of the prize, which is Jesus. And so when I think of the armor of God, and those are traits that we get from Christ, the helmet of salvation, you put on the sandals of peace, or you shod your feet with the sandals of peace, or the breastplate of righteousness, and the belt of truth, right? So those are all things that we get from Christ, from Jesus, in that standpoint, right? Because salvation is not of ourselves; it's nothing that we do. It's what Christ has done for us. Righteousness is not anything that we have, which is why it says things like we have to put it on. We have to accept the fact that Jesus Christ is our righteousness, right? That He became poor that we might become rich. I think it says in 2 Corinthians. So we have no real righteousness in and of ourselves.
Okay.
Our righteousness comes from none other than Jesus. So when it talks about putting on, it's almost like an action of saying, yeah, I'm accepting, realizing, knowing that Jesus is my righteousness. And I need Him because when I put on that breastplate, it's protecting all of my vital organs. So some of that, I think, is Paul looking at a Roman soldier and saying, if I were to take those pieces of armor, how would I equate those to a believer? Such that they would be in what they get from Jesus by being.
Okay. Because when I pulled it out, I was like, does Joseph, is he already clothed in the armor of God? Is this something that you
I
have to
also think
do?
this is after Joseph's time. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
So is it? I don't know.
Yeah. So one thing that what can we say about Joseph? That Joseph is part of the covenant, the one-way covenant that God made with Abram. Right. There's Abram was called out of the land of Ur from his father's house to go to a place where the Lord had called him to go. So now what the Lord is saying is that basically I'm going to keep you, and I'm giving you a promise that you are going to have a child, and eventually that child is going to lead to an entire nation. Right? And that's when you read chapter 12 of Genesis, and all of those promises. You'll be a great nation, and I'll bless those who bless you, and I'll curse those who curse you. That's all God working. And so now what we see is God is working through Abram, who becomes Abraham, through his son Isaac, right? Not Ishmael, right? Not Hagar's son, but the promised son that God gave to Abraham through Sarah, right? And God is working with, because He's got a purpose. He's creating a people for Himself. And He's creating that people for Himself such that all the nations would see them and be like, I want some of that. I want some of what they have. So when we're looking at this, and you look, and that's why I think when you get to Exodus, and remember Moses wrote all of this, but as you continue to read through the rest of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, and even beyond that, a lot of folks call out the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, is because it's pointing back to the covenant that was made and how that's carrying through. And that same God that was there then, that made that covenant and has been faithful to that covenant, because by the time we get to Exodus and the Hebrews leave Egypt, right? The fiery furnace, there's a multitude of them, and they leave with a multitude of riches because God has been with them that whole time. So I say all that to say I don't know if it's necessarily a thing of like Joseph having to have on armor or being protected, but I think it's more of God has a plan, and He's working that plan out. He's chosen who He's going to work that plan through, and you can't stop it. You can't quell it. Right? Even so, case in point, even when Abraham went to Egypt, right? And he told Sarai, I can't remember whether it was Abram or Abraham. I'm not going to get into all of that, but I'll just call him Abraham and Sarah for now. And he told Sarah, when we go into Egypt, because she was a looker too, right? And he told her, I need you to tell everybody you're my sister.
Which was true.
It was true, but that opened up a can of worms.
Yeah.
Because what happened when she got there, the Pharaoh was like, oh, I see you. You need to come up to my spot. So he took her, and the Lord had to deal with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh came back to Abraham and was like, bro, you almost got me caught out there. Because what could not happen was there be any doubt as to who that child was. That child is a child of Abraham in his old age, of no one else, from the wife, not from a servant, not from Hagar, but from his wife. So God is working all this stuff out because he's got a purpose and a people that he's called.
Okay.
And from that people, he's got an even bigger purpose to bring the whole world into that. Now, that's that purpose for that time.
Okay.
But we also know that from that time, and from looking at chapter 38 to try and bring it back to us, that Judah has Perez, who is of the lineage of Jesus. So there's a bigger picture involved as well, not just these people.
Okay.
God is working out, how am I going to get the salvation of the world? Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. That's what John the Baptist said about Jesus. How am I going to get him, Emmanuel, God with us, to be here? Right? So there's two things that are going on here. And so God's going to get done when he needs to get done. And even despite all of the stuff that Joseph is going through, God is still like, hey, I see what y'all are doing.
Perspective. Yeah. I need that. Because it reframes for me. I was looking farther down, like farther in different chapters out of Genesis, and I was like, like how does this tie?
Mm-hmm.
How does this all tie in? But that makes sense. He's working his plan right now. Okay, I got you.
So, and I think that's what we see with a lot of this, and even when the entirety of the Pentateuch is God working his plan. Then after the Pentateuch, and you start to get into some of the historical books and the prophets, major and minors and such, right? Joshua, Judges, Ruth, and all of those things, right? He's still working his plan, but now Hebrew is a nation, and they've been given everything that they need to follow the Lord. And now it's like, I think it's Deuteronomy 28, right? The blessings and cursings. If you do what I say, I'm paraphrasing, the Lord says to them, you'll be blessed. But if you don't, then you'll be cursed. So you'll see the nation of Israel, being exiled and then coming back, and then being exiled and coming back, and breaking up into Israel and Judah, and then coming back together under David. So you'll see all of that type of stuff, but that's how God is dealing with the people that he has called through Abraham all the way and called out of Egypt.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That was good.
I don't know what else to say.
Final thoughts on chapter 39?
Yeah.
That's what you usually say.
I know. Thank you. I don't know. My final thoughts on chapter 39 is we just see, and I think I just touched on it. The Lord is with Joseph. He's working out what he needs to do, despite anything crazy that's going on. I don't know. What are your final thoughts?
I agree. Me and Joseph. I get him. I get you, bro. That's it was in today's time. I get you. I understand you. I understand. I'm understanding God's character more, and why these things take place. That whole section that we talked about was very helpful, because in my mind it was always like God's gonna do what God's gonna do, kind of thing. Like that's inevitable, but hey, God's like blessing me and pulling me out of these things, and I'm favored, because He's working, He's orchestrating this the way it needs to go for me, and I'm looking at it a little bit different. Like, it's not specifically for the reason that I think it is. It's for whatever reason that he already has pre-planned. Same goes for Joseph, and that makes a lot more sense. That gives me different perspective on a lot of different things.
Okay, cool.
Just a little reflection.
I don't have anything else to add. I feel like I already had my little session, so God is with us. The Lord can be with all of us.
There you go. The Lord, hey, if you believe in Christ, it says, "Lo, I am with you even until the end of the age." So awesome. That is chapter 39 in the books.
Yes.
The title is either Thirst Trap or Get Up to Get Down, Get Down to Get Up.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll workshop
It will workshop it. But again, thanks for being with us. Thank you all, because you guys rock. You're awesome. And we will see you next time as we get into Genesis 40.
Yes.
The cupbearer, the baker, and the candlestick maker. Deuces.
See y'all.
Peace.
Not yourself.